Welcome to episode 19 of the Wiley Wire. We have a lot to cover today. First topic is a very important one. Makes me mad even talking about it. The CIA declassified a document that says that there's been a cure for cancer since 1960. It's all over the internet. You can look it up yourself. It's a declassified document. There's been a lot of doctors out there saying this drug works, that drug works. There's talk show hosts saying it. And you kind of take it with a grain of salt. But it's true. They should be testing it more, improving it. Doctors are already using it. It's just unbelievable. It makes me mad. Everyone's lost family members to cancer. We're going to cover that. We're also going to cover fraud that's going on in Los Angeles, state of California. Kudos to CBS for being one of the first mainstream media networks to actually cover this and do journalism on this. We're going to cover that. Also, sports, WBC, Bam scoring 83, crazy, our WTF segment, and also we're going to do a hero segment. Welcome to the Wiley Wire.
Medications work against cancer cells. And it turns out that the parasites use mitochondrial substrate level phosphorylation in the tissue. And these embendazole, fenbendazole kill these parasites. So I tried it on the cancer cell, and sure as hell, it targets the mitochondrial substrate and glycolysis. So we have a mechanism now why parasite medications are working. But cancer is not a parasite. All these people say, oh, cancer is a parasite. It's not a parasite. Parasites and tumors use a common metabolic pathway, and a drug that works against parasites can be very effective against cancer. And that's what we begin to see, especially under nutritional ketosis.
As I said in my intro, they've been holding these declassified documents for over 60 years. And it confirms what a lot of doctors have been saying and have been called quacks and crazy people, but the declassified documents basically say the CIA and basically the health industry knew that parasitic worms, cancerous tumors thrived in similar conditions, and they could be treated with cheap and very available chemical compounds. Plus, the CIA docs also claim, this is wild, every cell in your body is an electrochemical liquid, crystal, that's receiving every form of energy in the universe. This is from the CIA documents. So I'm going to put something up on the screen that clarifies this. This is a doctor. Actually, this is a fact check about the CIA document. And it also goes into a reported plan for cancer, how to treat cancer. And I'm going to throw it up on the screen, but it's basically ivermectin, mebendazole, and fenbendazole, like the doctor just said in the clip I played, a high dose of vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, and a ketogenic diet. That's it. And I'm going to put more things up that other doctors have said about how much of these drugs do you use, how much, is effective for each cancer is different. There's a lot of different facets of this. It's not just take this and you're cured, but everything's chemotherapy. That's all you hear. And you never hear about this. And then you got CIA documents confirming that this stuff works, as you can see on the screen. Can you roll the clip this is a clip that I like Mel Gibson. I have nothing against him. He's made a lot of great movies. He seems to be on the right side of the truth. But I think he did a little damage to this, the way he was just so adamant about it, and it just came off as quacky when he was on Joe Rogan. But everything he's saying in this is what these documents are saying, is what these doctors are saying. So roll the clip of Mel Gibson. And again, the way he explains it almost seems kooky. So I could see why this got swept under the rug, but the doctors that knew about this were like, he's right. As goofy as it was, how he said it and how he explained it, he's right. Roll the clip of Mel Gibson on Joe Rogan.
I'll tell you a good story.
Okay.
I have 3 friends. All 3 of them had stage 4 cancer. All 3 of them don't have cancer right now at all. And they had some serious stuff going on.
And what did they take?
Jesus. They took some, what you've heard they've taken.
Ivermectin and
Fenbendazole.
fenbendazole. Yeah.
That
Yeah,
stuff.
I'm hearing that a lot.
They drank hydrochloride something or other.
There's studies on that now where people have proven that
People
they've
drinking methylene blue and stuff like that.
Yeah, methylene blue, which was a fabric dye.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a textile dye. And now they find out it has profound effects on your mitochondria.
Yep.
Yeah.
This stuff works, man.
There's a lot of stuff that does work, which is very strange because, again, it's profit. When you hear about things that are demonized and that turn out to be effective, you always wonder, well, what is going on here? How is our medical institutions, how have they failed us so that things that do cure you are not promoted because they're not profitable?
Wild, just watching that again. I've seen that clip a million times, and like I said, Mel Gibson comes off a little kooky in it, which discredits the information, but the information itself is great. I mean, it's what these doctors are saying. It's pretty straightforward. Take this, this, and this, but it's the same information that all these doctors are saying. Methylene blue, though, is an added drug, which I take that every day, a pill. You can take in liquid form. You can get it on Amazon. Make sure you get a foolproof methylene blue. You don't get some crappy version. We got to watch what you buy on Amazon. But there's a lot of companies on Amazon that have good foolproof methylene blue. And you see like Robert F. Kennedy putting it in his drink. There's like clips going around online of him dropping this blue substance in his water on a plane or whatever. So obviously he's taking it. A lot of people take it. It's good for the mitochondria. I'm no doctor, so I'm not saying take this because I said so. Look it up, do your own research. But it's just wild to see these reports. And I just like say this. Instead of just telling everyone to get chemotherapy and basically ruining people's insides, making them severely ill, they have to put all their attention off of profit and onto these drugs and start studying the right doses to give to each cancer, because each cancer is different. Like I put up on the screen, the one Dr. Mitchell wrote, each cancer is different. So there's different doses of each of these drugs that you need to use. And some, he says, if you give too much, can actually hurt the cancer or help the cancer grow. So do your own research, but it's wild to see this. And it's all money. He breaks it down. I'll put his tweet up responding to the CIA documents. The reason why we haven't used these drugs is only profit. It's not that the CIA was holding it back. As much as they declassified the document, parts of the stuff in the document were declassified, were new information. Some of it was old information. A lot of it, the doctors already knew about it. It's just the pharmaceutical industry didn't want these drugs that cost dollars to be used. They want chemotherapy. They want to run up bills. They want, it's sick and sad to say, but money is always the reasoning behind things. And that's my opinion as well. This doctor that I have the tweet up above my shoulder basically says the same thing. So we got to start doing the right thing and being on the right side of history than using methods that are only being used for profit. But they got to take the time and research these drugs and make sure that these drugs are being used because they're saying they work. So why not use them? But I'm going to roll a clip of this phenomenal doctor that I heard about this guy when he came out with an anti-COVID drug when COVID just came out back in 2019. And he was like shunned by the medical community. He went off on his own. He spent all his money for this anti-COVID drug. And he talks about cancer. He talks about elephants, why elephants don't get cancer. It's pretty wild. He was on Megyn Kelly. So roll the clip of the doctor on Megyn Kelly.
53 that actually prevents cancer from occurring. Elephants have 8 p53s. That's why elephants don't get cancer.
Wow. Did not know that.
So you could be an elephant and you'd be fine. Guess what COVID does? It knocks down p53.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, no.
We're about to publish that. Dr. Carlos Cardone and I have done the work. It knocks down p53. And if you have any latency, and so therefore it's what I consider no different from HPV, which causes cancer with the latent period of once you have HPV, 5-10 years. Now we are seeing for the first time in America head and neck cancer from HPV exceeding that of cervical cancer.
Oh.
So I just tweeted about 4 or 5, now 6 patients with head and neck cancer in our clinic. And we're about to start now a randomized trial in head and neck cancer, where we're getting responses 6 out of 6.
Wow. I mean, that guy should be one of the leading doctors for cancer, along with a lot of other ones that are just geniuses, devoted their whole lives to this, that are so pro ivermectin, and they have all these tests that have been done. We got to get away from greed and profit and get back to saving people's lives. That's what the health industry should be all about. I'm going to put a post up from Jason R. Williams, one of the doctors I follow, and he talks about the CIA didn't hide the cancer cure, which he's right. But I'll read his post. It's above my shoulder right now. Jason R. Williams, MD. The CIA didn't hide a cancer cure. The pharmaceutical industry made it unprofitable to pursue one. Basically saying there's no profit in ivermectin. There's no profit in, a zinc diet. There's no profit in mebendazole. So they aren't pursuing it. So it's just a matter of pursuing it. Let's get the right doctors in the health department to pursue it. And then he goes on, I've been using anti-parasitic drugs like ivermectin, mebendazole in my cancer protocol since 2017, not because cancer is a parasite. That's an oversimplification that leads people down the wrong path. It's because parasites and cancer cells run the same biological playbook. Hijack the host, evade immune detection, replicate, spread. Drugs designed to disrupt one can hit the other. So, again, I'm not a doctor. I hope I never have to use these drugs, but I'm sure one day I'll know somebody that is going to get cancer, and I'd love to, if this works, have this available for people in the future. And this can be done soon. When we can build rocket ships that fly to the moon, right? In the 60s, we can't figure this out. It doesn't make much sense to me other than profit, profit, profit. Money, money, money. The only reason it makes sense to me. If it wasn't for the money, why wouldn't we go down this fork in the road rather than keep going down, making that left at the fork instead of the right? And some of these doctors are just absolute geniuses, especially the one I just played. So we got to start using our genius minds that are non-biased about profit and more biased on curing patients. That's to me their only objective, curing patients, getting rid of cancer. So we don't have to have all these cancer funds and cancer runs and cancer walks and raising money for this and that, when we can have a drug that, or multiple drugs that work and can save so many lives. So that's my brief segment on the cancer cure. It's such a big topic. I think more people that are intelligent in health should really go down these rabbit holes, good rabbit holes about cancer and other things too. You can find a lot of information out there. And this is something that, again, since the start of this segment, you go from Mel Gibson saying it, and there's so many people out there saying it, they just don't say it eloquently enough where people think it's real. They think it's a scam, or they think it's just another conspiracy theory. These are legit doctors, geniuses that are saying it. We need to go down this path to find a better way to fight and cure cancer. In segment 2, we're going to get into fraud, and I've been covering this since I started this podcast back in January. And kudos to Nick Shirley. If it wasn't for him, I don't think any mainstream network would even be covering this fraud that's been going on across the country. You know, Nick Shirley started in Minnesota with the Learning Center, and all the fraud that was going on there. And he's going to get all these politicians out of there just because they were overseeing it. That's people, citizens doing good journalism. That's the main thing. It's not feel bad for Somali people or fraudsters or we're picking on them. No, they're stealing tax dollars and they're running illegal crime organizations with our money. And it shouldn't be allowed. Then he went to California and he started exposing other things there as well. I think he talked about autism centers and he talked about voter rolls in LA County and San Diego and all that. But I'm going to pick up with CBS, and I'm glad they're covering this. I'm not going to get on the bandwagon of how do you let a kid, Nick Shirley, expose this before you, and I'm just glad they're exposing it. Is that true? Yeah. Why did it have to take Nick Shirley to do this before the mainstream media, before real news organizations, that their whole job is to do journalism, to report on this? Makes you wonder, definitely. Kudos to Nick Shirley. And I'm going to give a kudos to CBS for actually following through and covering this. The journalist in the clip I'm going to run does a really good job of breaking it down. He kind of does the same thing Nick Shirley was doing, goes and knocks on doors and finds that there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hospice centers right around each other, stealing millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars from the state of California and the federal government. But again, this has got to stop. And it's hard to, keep ranting on this, but this is known by the politicians in the states. There's no way, if you just kind of look at a spending sheet and seeing all these hospice businesses all together in one building, getting all this money, if somebody that is an independent journalist can walk around with a microphone and catch fraud like this, what can CBS do? What could Fox News do? What can CNN do? What could MSNBC do if they want to do it? And local news organizations in California, they should be the ones really gearing up on this, because that's local news. A lot of people that live in California may not watch the general mainstream news. They might be tuning in just to the local news. So they got to be doing their best effort to expose this. But roll the clip of the CBS journalist covering the fraud.
Hospice fraud costs taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars every year. And California is ground zero. So basically, people steal Medicare numbers, they enroll them in hospices, and then bill for tens, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars. A lot of these companies are just fronts. So over 700 of the roughly 1,800 hospices in LA County trigger multiple red flags for possible fraud. So we went door to door, and what we found was empty office spaces, piled up mail, and not a single healthcare worker in sight. There's even a stretch in LA with 500 registered hospice companies within just 3 miles of each other. In fact, there's even a single building with 89 registered hospice companies. We wanted to get some answers.
Okay, so my name is Adam Yamaguchi and I'm with CBS News, and we're doing a story about hospice, and we're just trying to understand how and why there's so many hospice agencies in like a small cluster in LA County. Would love to speak with you. I'm sorry? You have no comment? Okay. All right.
Medicare hospice fraud can happen in a few different ways. Shell companies can buy stolen Medicare numbers on the dark web and then bill the government for services that they don't ever actually provide.
It's just unreal. California is a beautiful place. I grew up going there. I love California. I don't love it much anymore. That'd be the number one place I'd move to if it got cleaned up, if better government came in there, if the homeless problem was actually addressed and not used for profit. You can always look back too in San Francisco. Remember when the president of China, Xi Jinping, came in and all of a sudden the streets were clean, immaculate. Gavin Newsom cleaned the whole city of San Francisco up just for the Chinese leader to come. It's like, do it for the people of the United States. Don't do it for the leader of China. It's unbelievable. But if you took all this fraud across the country and you just eliminated it off the United States books, I don't think we'd even have to pay income tax with all the fraud. But yet they want to tax us on our paychecks and all these other things, state taxes, federal taxes. You get your paycheck, half your paycheck goes to taxes. Now you take a place like California, who's one of the top 5 probably worst taxed places in the whole country. If you eliminate all the fraud, which they don't want to do because they're making profit off of it. But if you eliminate it, I don't know how you'd even have to pay state tax. And if you did, it's got to be a small percentage. The amount of people that live in California, if they lowered the percentage to like 3%, maybe even less, they'd be fine. They'd have plenty of money in the books to run the state. Plenty of money to help the homeless people. It's just all done on purpose. These politicians know this is going on. Kudos to CBS. Absolute kudos to Nick Shirley for exposing all this. And I'm glad CBS is going to be on the right side of this. They weren't on the right side of it in the beginning. It had to take somebody that was, an independent, small-time journalist to go out and do this. But I'm glad that CBS is taking charge and covering this. And they should continue to cover it. The local news organizations should continue to cover it. Independent journalists should continue to cover it in your local states, and especially in California, Illinois, all the places where fraud's going on. And it's not just Democrat cities too. It's all over. And just the fact that people in these states across the country know that people are looking at this now. Now they're going to look over the shoulder a little bit and go, hey, I can't do this now, or I can't steal money from here. People are going to start reporting on this, independent journalists, and even the mainstream now. Once the mainstream news starts covering it, that's when real action gets done that'll help the citizens of this country, help people that are getting crushed of taxes. I know I've heard things thrown around about Trump getting rid of the federal taxes with the tariffs and all that and the deals he's making with countries, but I'll believe it when I see it. Sounds great, but I think you can do it just by eliminating the fraud in all these states. I think that'll balance the budget for the country, all that federal money going in, and also the state fraud. The state, books will be balanced, my opinion. But kudos to CBS, kudos to Nick Shirley, other news organizations, the big ones. You need to start covering this too. We're back with our hero segment. Officer Navarro, Officer Edwards, New York City police officers. Unbelievable. Just their actions they took when that terrorist was throwing a bomb, pipe bomb, I think it was, near Mary Mandani's house the other day on March 7th. You see the iconic photo of the officer Edwards jumping over the barricade, tackling the terrorist, and the other officer Navarro going towards the bomb, getting people away. I mean, that could have turned into a Boston bombing type situation. And again, I always say these protests, whatever you want to call them, most of them aren't grassroots. Most of them are paid for. Either way, whether this one was grassroots, paid for, it doesn't matter. Don't go to these things again, because they're soft targets for terrorists like this to try to do what they tried to do, kill people. There's been false reporting about what the motives were, and networks have apologized already. But this heroic police officer, both police officers, heroic. And I just have to give those guys kudos for saving lives. And I'm going to roll a clip of Officer Edwards talking about why he reacted so fast and the iconic photo of him jumping the barricade. Roll clip of a Fox News.
And going toward danger, wants to know what was going through your head. What were you thinking?
Yeah, I wasn't thinking much. It was all instinct. You know, there was a bad guy to be caught, and I just wanted to get him. If you want to have a life of service, something that's fulfilling, this is the job for you. And I hope that photo of me clearing that barrier serves as that, right? If that inspires a young person to want to be a police officer, that want to take that chance, that don't mind rushing into danger to save other people, take this test. When you put on this uniform, right, that's your responsibility to protect people. And, you know, there's going to be times where you have to go into a dangerous situation so that other people can get out. But, you know, that's what comes with being a New York City police officer.
What a great man, especially how he reacted to such a incredible situation to be in. He says it. He's here to protect and serve, and that's what he did. So definitely a hero, especially risking his life, attacking a terrorist with a bomb, and obviously the other officer that went towards the bomb. I mean, think about that, going towards the bomb to get people away from it. Just very heroic. Kudos to those guys. And I want to play a clip, too, of the chief of police of Chicago. And I found this to be heroic. I guess the best thing to be doing in Chicago, saying the words he said, because that's not politically correct there. I'm sure there's a lot of people in Chicago, a lot of city workers I know probably disapprove of the chief of police, but maybe they don't. I don't know. I found what he said to be spot on, right on. In today's day and age, some heroism to come out and state what seems to be the obvious, but in today's world, this isn't the obvious. I grew up in Chicago, not the suburbs, in the city, and you're always taught to obey police officers, just how it went. Somewhere along the line, the last 15, 20 years, people think they're above the law and they can impede an officer's arrest or whatever. But kudos to this officer, chief of police of Chicago. Roll the clip of him talking about what citizens need to do. They're trying to impede ICE or law enforcement.
Let me make this clear. Federal agents, ICE, HSI, are officers. They are agents of law enforcement. If you box them in with vehicles, it is reasonable for them to believe that they are being ambushed and that this could end in a deadly situation. And it's reasonable for them to use force based on those conditions. Do not box in any law enforcement officer. You are breaking the law when you do that. And you are putting yourself in danger. Following law enforcement agents around. The question is why? What do you plan on doing? It's also reasonable for them to believe that you're eventually going to do harm to them. If you ram any vehicle, especially that one that contains law enforcement agents, and that's any law enforcement, local, state, federal, county, and you do this intentionally, this is considered deadly force. Deadly force is anything that can cause great bodily harm or death. When you plow into a vehicle that contains law enforcement agents, you're using deadly force. And they can use deadly force in response to stop you. We need to be clear about these laws. We cannot become a society where we just decide to take everything in our own hands and start to commit crimes against law enforcement. It is a crime. You may not like what they're doing. I can understand that there's a lot of emotions out there, but that does not mean that you get to commit a crime, especially one that could lead to deadly force. We need to keep everyone safe.
Mama, we feel your joy. The second highest scoring game in NBA history, second only to Wilt Chamberlain's 100-point game in Hershey, Pennsylvania against the New York Knicks when he was playing for Philadelphia. Points for Bam Adebayo. He will come out of the game and hear it from the crowd. And we feel you at home.
Bam Adebayo, what a game. 83 points. Unheard of. Second most points ever in an NBA game. Of course, Wilt Chamberlain had the 100. Broke Kobe Bryant's record of 81. And just to quickly talk about Kobe, taking nothing away of Bam, obviously. He deserves 83 points. That was just an overall dominant performance. A man playing with the boys, it looked like at points in the game. 7 threes he had. Inside game was just unstoppable. But back to Kobe, he's a shooting guard. He was towards the end of his career, at the end of his career, actually. And it was tougher for him to score, so he had to put on just an absolute perimeter onslaught to get the 81 when he scored it, taking nothing away from Bam. Because you talk about Wilt Chamberlain, you always hear they make it sound like he was just playing against midgets, like people my height, just dunking on him to score 100. There were great basketball players in the league, so back then it wasn't, him playing with a bunch of 6-foot guys. And Wilt Chamberlain was an amazing athlete. I've said this in my other episode. I think I ranked the top 10 NBA players. Look up Wilt Chamberlain, all the other sports he played, and how he dominated them. He was unreal. He wasn't some big stiff, they just throw the ball and he just drop it in. Just give him the ball and let him just put it in the hoop. It wasn't like that. So taking nothing away against Wilt Chamberlain, taking nothing away from Bam, and also giving Kobe some props, doing it as a shooting guard at the end of his career. But watching Bam perform the other night, dominant, man. I knew he was good, but I just didn't realize that he was capable of that. And I'm excited to see what he does going forward the rest of this season and in his career. I think he's only 26. So great job, Bam. I thought it was awesome. Awesome game to watch. No haters. There's always haters. I don't understand. They're whining about the timeout they called to get them on the line and all that bullshit. When someone even is in the realm in 60s, you got to let it ride. You got to let it go. Get as many points as you can at that point. You're on uncharted waters. Very few people have been in the 70s, 60s, 70s. Once you get in that realm, you got to keep it going. Coaches got to leave the guy in the game, keep feeding him the ball. And I have no hate on Spoelstra calling the timeout or fouling and all that stuff. So great job, Bam Adebayo, 83 points. And I want to get to this WBC. I had a little knock on it as being kind of like a spring training tournament, with higher stakes, if you want to call it. I was kind of joking with that, but there is truth to it because pitchers can't throw. I don't think the best team, whoever wins, is the best team unless the United States can pull it off, with limited arms, innings, and all that. But I think if the U.S. has unlimited innings for their pitchers, they can let guys go 95 to 100 pitches. I don't think anybody beats the United States. But that all being said, the fact that they lost to Italy, that was disappointing. And Mexico had to lose to get them in the playoffs. They almost were eliminated. Some bright spots, though. PCA, Pete Crow Armstrong, really standing out as a superstar in the league. Hit 2 homers in that Italy game that they lost. But yeah, you can't lose to Italy. You can't do it. The U.S. is stacked. Baseball, again, is such a weird sport. And then when you put pitching constraints on innings and all that, you don't really get the full outcome that should happen. I truly believe that. And you got guys from other countries that are just like gung-ho, laying it on the line, like it's the Game 7 of the World Series. And rightly so, because they'll never play in the major leagues. They'll never play against Aaron Judge on a field again unless he plays in the WBC next year. But the United States, on paper, talent-wise, has the best team by far. By far. And there's no reason they shouldn't win it, even with the limited pitching. But I want to go over a couple plays I saw. I'm going to roll a clip of Bobby Witt Jr. This guy at shortstop is, I knew he was really good, plays for the Royals, but these 2 plays he made in the hole were just unbelievable. The ground he covered to field these sure base hits, I'd say 8 out of 10 shortstops don't get a glove on that. So he's just got the most unreal range. Then he comes up from the knees and just throws a pellet to first base.
USA! Oh, my. Unreal! Oh, my goodness. Wow! That's 2 plays that you might see in a year. We got to see him in this game. Putting the star in Stars and Stripes.
Unreal play. Bobby Witt Jr., awesome play. And I want to talk about our next segment will be the WTF segment, episode 19's WTF. But last episode's WTF, I got a lot of people that were pissed off. And I don't know why. It's because I said the word queer, gay. Those weren't my words. Those are the politicians on Capitol Hill queering and gaying the maps. I said, these aren't my words. These are theirs. But I got a lot of people pissed off. So what am I doing wrong here? I can't say the word gay, queer, straight, transgender, homosexual. What am I not supposed to say? How do I address the topic without saying what they're saying? Queering and gaying the maps. I don't know any gay person personally that should be mad about me saying the word gay or queer when I'm just explaining what they said. Maybe they didn't watch the full reel. Maybe they just saw a little story and got all pissed off because I said the word gay, queer, and didn't listen to what I said. But either way, I'm tripling down. I can say gay. I can say queer whenever I want. It's not a bad word. And queering and gaying the maps makes no sense to me. Your sexual preference should have no bearing on where you live and how to map you in Chechnya or Afghanistan, and hopefully not here. And I don't want my tax dollars going to something in Chechnya. It's unbelievable. So I don't know how anybody can be for that, whether you're gay, straight, transgender, whatever you prefer. It shouldn't matter on a vote. It shouldn't matter on a map. And it definitely shouldn't be our tax dollars going somewhere to do that. Now, this is all done under the Biden administration, and this money flowing out to crap. If you want to be on a map that says you're gay or straight, go for it. I just don't think it's needed. I think it's a money laundering scam, to be honest with you. Sending money to Chechnya to gay and queer the maps. Like I said in my episode, that most of these people that are pissed off probably didn't watch anyways. They just hear a clip. Most of the people that were behind sending that money couldn't, with a clear conscience, want that type of work to be done, investigated. They're getting a kickback. Let's just call it, you send $2 million to Chechnya. That's not the exact number or whatever the number was. So you'd send $2 million to Chechnya. Somebody was getting part of that $2 million. I mean, even in the clip I ran last time, the lady that was on didn't even know what ended up happening with it, or if it even got done. So, but the money went out. But so everyone's got to calm down, quiet down, relax. People get so goofy. But this WTF segment is going to be Chucky Schumer fumbling his words and giving the house away. We'll be back with the WTF segment.
The Wiley Wire segment, where Brandon asks,
"What the fuck is this?"
Allows ICE to kick tens of millions of people off the rolls, and they don't tell them until Election Day, and you show up and you say, you're not registered anymore. You're not registered here. You're not on the rolls.
Chucky Schumer. I think he slipped up there. I don't think he knew he was giving away the house on that statement, but he basically let the whole world know that the voter rolls are rigged. They're full of people that are not citizens. They're full of dead people. They're full of people that are registered to vote in multiple states. That's why these states don't want their voter rolls audited, because they don't want to get people off the voting rolls. They want basically illegal citizens to vote. They want people that don't live in the state to vote. They want people to be on there that never show up and vote. It's only the politicians that want this. And Chuck Schumer just basically tried to paint the sob story of someone's going to show up to the polling site to vote and they're not going to be on the voter roll. Yeah, because they're not a citizen. If I'm in Spain while an election's going on and I show up to the polling place to vote and I get denied, you think the Spaniards are going to be sympathetic for me that I wasn't able to vote? I'm not a citizen of the country. I shouldn't be on the voter roll. And Chuck Schumer just basically walked himself into letting everyone know that the SAVE Act needs to be passed. It's unbelievable. I really think he fumbled his words, and he's getting older, and he came out and just said what he wasn't supposed to say, but he said it. You just heard it. And we got to fix this. I'm going to roll a clip of CNN. And normally, CNN the last 10 years has been about 99.9% biased towards Republicans and mainly towards Trump. And this year, I say CNN is about 85% biased. But every now and then, they report a story that's true. Now, the other networks are reporting the same numbers, whether it's left-leaning, right-leaning, center-leaning. The numbers are the numbers. And if the numbers weren't in favor of the SAVE Act or weren't in favor of illegals not being able to vote, I'd still give my opinion that I think the SAVE Act should pass. I think that you should be a citizen to vote in your country. Kind of seems like common sense to me. But if the numbers were saying that the people of the country didn't want that, I'd put the numbers up there. I'd say, well, you know, blacks don't want voter ID, whites don't want voter ID, and Hispanics don't want voter ID. So I don't think this is going to pass. But overwhelmingly, the entire country wants this SAVE Act to pass. Overwhelmingly. Blacks, whites, Hispanics, you name it. The percentage are so in favor of the SAVE Act that it's almost ridiculous that politicians are coming out and saying that this shouldn't pass. So their true colors are showing. I really think they're scared. I think that, you know, Ocasio-Cortez can defeat Chuck Schumer easily. Not that I'm for her either. I'm not. You know, I want somebody that's more experienced in the position, that has knowledge and wants what's right for America. And you also got to look at these politicians, see where their money is coming from. But I'm just saying Ocasio-Cortez because Chuck Schumer will not and should not beat her if they ran against each other. Voter ID will prevent Chuck Schumer from winning. No doubt. No doubt, whether it's a Republican that wins or another Democrat or whatever. I think that voter rolls need to be purged in all states, Republican states too. I'm not for purge Democratic-run cities, purge all of them. Get everyone off the voter rolls that shouldn't be on there and let the pieces fall. If the country goes overwhelmingly Democratic, so be it. That's what the people want. I don't think that will happen. I think that some cities and states will turn if all the voter rolls are cleaned up. That's just my opinion. But let's just say they were, and a Democrat wins and in a Republican area, I'm okay with that because at least it's fair. I'm about fair elections. I'm not for unfair elections. The politician I want to be in there wins. I want the politician that deserves to be in there to win, whether I agree with their views or not. And that's what democracy is all about. But roll a CNN clip of the actual polling numbers for the SAVE Act, totally going against what Chuck Schumer just said in the previous clip.
Breakdown on this, right? Because I think a lot of people make the argument that people of color, non-white Americans, have a harder time procuring a photo ID to vote. But even here, take a look here. Favorite photo ID to vote. 85% of white people favor it. 82% of Latino. 76% of black Americans favor it. So the bottom line is this. Voter ID is not controversial in this country. A photo ID to vote is not controversial in this country. It is not controversial by party, and it is not controversial by race. The vast majority of Americans agree with Nicki Minaj that, in fact, you should have a photo ID to be able to vote.
This issue is just undebatable. Every time somebody tries to argue it from the side of not needing ID to vote, just goes down an undebatable rabbit hole of looking like an idiot. If you just want to be frank about it. If you need an ID to get on a plane, go through TSA, buy a beer, show them that you're 21, drive a car, then you have the most sacred and most important act as a U.S. citizen, voting, and it's a problem to have an ID to do that. How do you debate against that? How do you say that you shouldn't have an ID? There really is no argument. what they do is they try to use the racism card, which that doesn't actually make any sense. It's actually, their argument of racism actually is racist. If you look at it, they're trying to say certain ethnic groups aren't capable of getting an ID, which is ridiculous. You see the poll numbers, you just saw them. So they got to pass the SAVE Act, and we got to hold our politicians accountable. The ones that vote no, you got to remember their names, and you got to remember when you're voting next time that you vote them out of office, because that is absurd if you vote no to the SAVE Act. We'll be back with our next segment, the wrap of episode 19. Thanks for watching episode 19 of the Wiley Wire. Follow us, like us, share us on all platforms at the Wiley Wire. Thanks for staying wired, and we'll see you next time.
The Wiley Wire dives into sports, music, politics, health, and trending topics for entertainment, info, and education. Listener discretion advised. May include mature themes, explicit language, controversial views, or sensitive content. Not suitable for under 18 or all audiences. Parents, please supervise. All opinions from hosts, guests, and contributors are personal and don't reflect our official views. Information isn't guaranteed to be accurate. Do your own research and consult qualified professionals.